Hello, welcome to another YouTube Live. Here I am every Monday, and you can join me for a free class. So here we have the space where you can ask questions, where you can get some free coaching if you pop some queries in the comments section, and this is your chance to chat with me and get some insights into whatever challenges might be happening. So today I wanted to talk about some common questions that come up. There are often these questions in the last 11 years that I've been doing this job, and I wanted to share some of these and just answer some of these questions, because these are questions that I've had time and time again, and explain a little bit about what I do in one-on-one sessions, and also like all the other things that I do. But just to explain a little bit more about that and the difference between NLP, coaching, and there can be many different ways that it's described, many different ways that it's used. I'm going to explain a little bit about how I use it. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. So first of all, how are you? I'd love to hear how you are. How is your heart doing this week? Pop it in the comment section. I'm still figuring out YouTube. I don't know why when we do the live classes that all of the comments, the people writing questions and comments in the live call, they don't stay when the video's up for the replay. So when you go to the replay, all of the comments from the live calls have disappeared. I'm still figuring out technology. Maybe some people out there are a little bit more tech savvy than I am. Though, yes, feel free to chat away. So what I'd love to do is to explain a little bit about what is NLP, what are the differences between NLP and coaching, and how I use it. So I'm trained in NLP trainer. So I've done the practitioner training, done the master practitioner training, and I've also done the trainer's training. And I've done training in hypnosis as well, and also done some dance trainings as well. So working with the body and really finding ways how we can incorporate the body and movement in sessions and in workshops, and blending everything with NLP. So NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So NLP is all to do with the neurology, like all those filters that we have within our mind. We have these filters because we're receiving all of this information through our senses. Like we see things, we hear things, we feel things, we smell things, we taste things. There's all this information coming towards us, and our mind needs to make sense of that in order for us to know how to respond, how to react in that situation, and whether we need to protect ourselves or whether we need to respond in a particular way. So neuro-linguistic programming, neuro is all to do with the filters, the unconscious filters that we have. And those filters, everything is filtered, tends to be deleted, distorted, generalized. We tend to distort reality a little bit within our mind, and all of that is done according to our beliefs, our belief system. This is why you might hear the phrase, your map of the world. Everyone sees life through a particular pair of glasses. This is a metaphor that people usually use, that we tend to see things how we believe we are, or the world is, or how other people are. So this is why working with the beliefs is so important, because if I have a particular belief that everyone from a particular country is one way, or men are one way, or women are another way, or if I hold on to those beliefs, that will filter my experience. That will filter my experience, my reality. So the reality that I experience in life is simply just that, my reality. And someone else's experience of life is that, their reality. So everyone has their own version of what is reality, and the actual truth is somewhere in the middle between everything. But we all have our own versions of that, and everything's filtered according to our beliefs, according to our values, according to all of these different filters that we have. Culture, language, all of that can come into it as well. So that's to do with the neurology. And then linguistics, so neuro-linguistics, linguistics is to do with the communication, like how we're communicating to ourselves and others. What words are we using? What phrases are we using? Getting really curious about, how am I talking to myself? How am I talking about situations? How am I talking about to other people or myself? How am I talking about life, about the world? So this is very connected with the beliefs. Obviously, you got those beliefs there within the unconscious mind, and then that linguistic part, the self-dialogue, and also what we verbally speak. So that's everything. That's very connected there. But it's really fascinating just to notice how we're actually talking about things, because how we talk about things determines our experience of things. And if I'm going on and on and on and saying like, oh, it's terrible, it's awful, it's this, blah, 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 or I'm stupid, or I'm terrible, or blah, like whatever the thoughts are, the beliefs are, everything's going to respond to that. My emotional state will respond, my physiology will respond, and then that has a knock-on effect on what actions and choices I make in life. So if I'm there with this negative dialogue, it's going to be very challenging to feel uplifted and energized and want to like go out there and live life to the fullest. It'll be quite challenging, because if we're hearing that constant negative dialogue, like our physiology will just drop down. Obviously, what tends to happen is that the shoulders round, everything like becomes a little bit more heavy, and emotionally we might feel that heaviness and might feel a little bit more sluggish or lacking in confidence, or even feeling a lot of anxiety. This is what I work with a lot of clients, is with anxiety. So that's the linguistic part. And then programming, that's all the tools and techniques that we have. So in NLP, it's almost like we have this little suitcase, this little box of all these tools and techniques that we have that can really help us to create change at an unconscious level. And this leads to one of the first questions that I want to talk about, is that what is the difference between NLP and coaching? Now, I tend to use the term coaching often because people find it easier to understand, and there is an overlap and there is a lot of coaching elements in NLP. We do help clients to move forward, to make changes. We hold them accountable. We set goals if we need to, even though that's not my main focus. I'll explain a bit more about how I use it personally. Though there is a slight difference as well, because coaching, there are many different types of coaching out there, and there are many different types of ways of using NLP out there. Though generally speaking, coaching is very much, yes, working with mindset, working with beliefs, working with all of that. But often there's missing this element of working with the unconscious mind. So a lot of it's done through conversation, a lot of it's done through different techniques where you're writing things down, you're discussing things, or there can be embodied coaching where you're connecting with the body as well. There are many different elements to it, but often there's missing this element of working with the unconscious mind. And this is what sets NLP apart, because with NLP, it's almost like, I like to see it almost in between hypnosis and coaching, and NLP somewhere in the middle. There's this element where we work with the unconscious mind. We use hypnotic language when we're using particular techniques, like working, for example, guided visualization. We'll use some Milton model hypnotic language to really help the unconscious mind to create those changes, because we know that that is where 90% or more, the variation, like people say that it's a different percentage, but it's generally agreed that a huge portion of what we do and our behavior comes from the unconscious mind. Not what we choose consciously, but from the unconscious. So this is where self-sabotaging behavior can come in, especially in New Year's resolutions, or like starting the new year's, like, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to try this new healthy habit or this new like way of eating or do some exercise or whatever it is that we want to do. And often a lot of people set those goals from the conscious mind, forgetting that there's this whole other aspect to us. It's almost like this iceberg. Like the conscious mind is just the very tip that is above the water. Everything else below, that's the unconscious mind. So this is why it's really important to use certain tools and techniques, whether that's NLP, whether that's hypnosis, whether that's EFT, whether that's EMDR, whether that's like, there are many different, even kinesiology, there are many different therapies out there that can help create shifts within the unconscious mind. What I know and what I'm trained in, and I've been working with this for the last 11 years, is NLP and a little bit of hypnosis. And it just helps to reinforce those changes, and you're planting that seed and you're just saying, okay, yeah, this is what I want. And it just helps to make it a little bit easier. And yes, most of the clients that I work with are struggling with anxiety or a lack of self-confidence or negative self-talk. That's a big topic, and I've done many lives on that. This is all something very common, and often there's when clients come for sessions, that often they think that they're alone in this, that they are the only one experiencing these things, or the only one like going through those panic attacks or going through the anxiety, and it can feel incredibly overwhelming and lonely and frustrating and scary. And I know what that feels like, because I went through panic attacks, weekly panic attacks, like 12 years ago. This was what got me into NLP in the first place. And thanks to NLP, thanks to acupuncture, and thanks to cutting out caffeine, that I got rid of that completely. So I know what it feels like, and it can feel like there's this big problem, or things are really difficult, or that you're struggling. It's like, oh, why are other people happy, or why are other people like able to go through things easily? Though let me tell you, after 11 years of hearing many different people all around the world, like I work with clients online as well, there's this like thread of humanity between everyone, and there's so much in common between all these people. And these are common human experiences. Like, as we're going through this human experience on this planet, we have this soul, we have the ego, and this is very common to have moments where things feel a bit anxious, or sometimes for some people it goes into anxiety attacks or panic attacks, or like it's just so common. Like, there are many things that many people experience, and at the very core of it, like whatever topic clients come to me with, whether that's about relationships, health, work, public speaking, anxiety, you name it, underneath it all, it's all the same thing. It's all to do with how we see ourselves and how we see the world and how we see current situations. So I've had quite a lot of practice over the years, like really helping people to remember how amazing they are, how worthy they are, and to tap into that inner light, tap into that core within, and that they're not alone, that many people experience this too, and that there are ways out, and there are ways to make it easier. There are ways to make life a little bit easier, because let's face it, this planet can be a little bit crazy sometimes, though it's also beautiful and magical, and sometimes we forget that. So what happens in sessions? So what happens in sessions? So in one-on-one sessions, how I use NLP varies a little bit from different people that use NLP. I mean, There's NLP that's used very much in the sales and the marketing and the advertising, like that's one form of using it. Then you have the way of using NLP, people like, for example, performance athletes, like athletes, sports people, like I'm pretty sure like most tennis players have had the NLP at some point to really work on their mindset, like really peak performance, like becoming the best of the best as much as you can. And I very much think of like, okay, Tony Robbins. I'm sure some of you have heard of Tony Robbins, and he works a lot with that as well, helping people to break through and really step into their fullest expansion. And then you also have some politicians that use NLP. This is probably where NLP gets a bad reputation sometimes with the politicians. They certainly don't help. Though it's there's many different ways that it can be used. And how I was taught and how I use it is very much about working with the inner child. So we're looking at the belief system of the younger self and the inner child, and we're looking at this holistic perspective of you and why you're here, what you're here to contribute with, and your gifts and your strengths, and to really step into that loving, I call it self-tenderness. Like sometimes self-love can feel a little bit like this massive mountain to climb, and it's like, oh, when I get to self-love, we don't need to go from 0 to 100 straight away. We can just start off with maybe perhaps just tolerating ourselves, and then accepting ourselves a little bit more, and then bringing some gentle self-tenderness, which is just gentle loving presence. So that's how I use NLP. It's all about helping people to remember that inner light within, helping them to remember how worthy they are, helping them to remember that there is this calm center within. Like when I'm working with clients that have a lot of anxiety, often they think that anxiety is this, like they are anxious, and they almost make it this identity that, oh, I am an anxious person. No, you're experiencing anxiety. And if we perhaps start changing the perspective and how we see things, and especially how we see anxiety itself, then we realize that anxiety is a messenger. It's bringing a message, it's communicating something. Often it's communicating a need, an emotional need of the inner child, or a physical need of the body. So perhaps you actually do need to take a break, take some deep breaths, make sure that you've been fed and like had some, like eaten something, drunk something, like drink some water, come back to the physical body. Often when there's a lot of anxiety, that we're living up here in the head, and it's all about coming back to the breath, coming back to the body, and just remembering that, like coming back to that. And then just really, just tending to the physical needs, making sure that you've slept, making sure that you're not overdoing it with caffeine. I've had clients come to me before that they're struggling with anxiety and they want to help the anxiety, and they drink about 5 cups of coffee a day. That doesn't help. It really doesn't help. We know that caffeine, for most people, it can create that adrenaline rush and that spike, and it can really, especially if you're not having it with any healthy fats, or like not having a healthy balanced diet, it can create a lot of issues. So of course they experience anxiety. It's like, I see caffeine as, it almost like turns up the dial on anything that you're already feeling within your system. So if there are already emotions there that you haven't tended to, or you're going through a challenging time, add a couple of espressos to that, and it will just like make everything even more intense. Obviously not for every single person, though I've seen that happen a lot, and that was certainly the case for myself. So not to say that we can't ever have caffeine, but it can be an important thing to look at. So in sessions, what happens is that usually we have this, so there's like a little bit of a conversation in the beginning. So it's a little bit like coaching, like we're finding out, okay, where are you currently? What's currently happening in your life? Like what's the current issue that you're coming with? And what's the current situation? What have you tried? What have you not tried? Where would you like to go? Like what result would you like to have at the end of it? So we need to have a clear idea of A, B, like where are we now? Where are we going? And what have you tried? What haven't you tried? And then through questioning, I start exploring and asking questions and just finding out like what's the root cause. And this is one of the things I love about NLP is that it's all about finding the root cause. It's not about putting a plaster on top of things. It's not about just like yeah, oh yeah, we'll just give you a quick technique and then you'll be fine and then the problem comes back again. No, it's all about finding out where things come from. Like where's the root cause? Like what does this stem from? Because majority of the time it's something from childhood. Something from childhood that we've decided at some point in our life that we're stupid or ugly or not worthy of love or I can't do it. Like whatever the belief is and whatever the issue is, often there is something that we've experienced in the past, and usually between the ages 0 to 7, that's the big imprinting stage of our life where we're literally like sponges and we just absorb everything and we model our parents, we model our caretakers, we model other kids in the playground, and we just take things on and we go through life with all these backpacks. And then as we're older, we then realize like, oh, this backpack's not mine. I'm going to let that go. I'm going to drop that down. And we realize that there's a lot of things that perhaps we don't need to hold on to anymore. So I'm not sure exactly, because I can't see exactly who is watching, but I can see that people are watching. And some of you may have heard this story. Some of you may not have heard this story. If you have, this is a great reminder. And if you're new to this, this will be a little insight of what I mean about beliefs from childhood. So many years ago, I wanted to buy some new trainers and I saw these beautiful bright turquoise trainers in the shop, and being someone who loves turquoise, like I was like literally like a moth to a light and I really wanted to buy those. And I noticed that as I reached out to pick up those trainers, suddenly all these thoughts, negative self-talk, started coming up in my mind. And I noticed that there were thoughts of, oh no, you don't want to stand out, they're too bright, you don't want people to stare at you or like see you, like look at your bright trainers on your feet. There are all these thoughts about like them being too bright, too loud, too like they would just grab attention, and that felt unsafe. And in that moment, I got curious because usually there are different ways of dealing with negative self-talk, and some people say, "Oh, just ignore it, just think positive." Big mistake, because then you're missing the gifts. So in that moment, I got curious and I was like, "Oh, where did that come from? When did I first decide that?" And then I suddenly realized I had this memory of being at school and being teased about my shoe size because I'm a tall woman. I like at school when all the boys and girls tend to grow, like have growth spurts at different ages. So I was towering over a lot of the boys at school, and I got teased a lot for my shoe size. And here I was as an adult buying trainers, and there was my inner child coming up in the form of negative self-talk. But there was my inner child wanting to protect me, wanting to protect me. It didn't want to buy those trainers because it felt unsafe to do so. So when we pay attention to negative self-talk and we get curious and we start exploring where did this come from, we can learn a lot. It gets really interesting. It's like, oh, okay. So then we have choices. There are options. when we realize that, it's like, okay, perhaps I can reassure that younger self within that everything's okay, that I am safe, that I'm an adult now, and that I get to choose what I wear, and I can choose what lights me up and fills me up. And just to bring some reassurance and self-love to our younger self. And there are many different ways that we can do this. And obviously, if this is in a session, then we would do a timeline technique. We would do, like, obviously depending what comes up, maybe there's a parts integration, maybe there is a swish pattern or a re-imprinting process that we go through. There are many different techniques that we have just to really tell the unconscious mind and tell that younger self within that everything's okay, everything's safe. And also you can do it in the moment. So this is exactly what I do. What I did in that moment with the trainers is that I decided that, okay, I'm going to rewrite the story. I'm not going to continue that pattern of playing small. So I bought those trainers, and the act of buying those trainers was an act of creating a new story. Like really deciding, okay, that's it. I'm going to choose what I love. Whilst also just like reassuring my younger self and just saying, you're safe. You're safe. It's okay. So, and I love to bring in the body with this as well, like just a gentle touch or a holding, or just like really, it's almost like we're creating an anchor. What we talk about in NLP is where you have some stimulus and an emotional reaction that comes with that. So physical touch is a great one. So you can use physical touch and use reaffirming thoughts and beliefs and just make that a regular practice. And then it becomes this anchor that every time you do that, it becomes stronger and stronger. So like now, every time I place my hand over my heart and say to myself, I'm here, automatically my breath deepens, softens, like this sense of like safety, warmth and safety comes because I've done that so many times. And the more we do that, the more we practice it, it becomes stronger and stronger. So this is why beliefs are so important, and looking at the beliefs, like what stories are we telling ourselves? What stories are we telling ourselves? And if there are certain fears coming up, certain negative phrases and beliefs that we're reaffirming to ourselves, we can get curious, like, where did this come from? Where did this come from? I wonder, if I was to know when I decided that, when was that? Like just getting curious. And we don't need to get the answer straight away. Simply just the act of asking a question and just leaving it there. What we're doing is we're creating space. We're creating space for the answer to then come. So we're literally, and also on a NLP level, we're telling the reticular activating system, which is a particular part of the brain, we're telling it to pay attention to that, because the reticular activating system is the part of the brain that notices when people call your name, like when everyone says your name, you pay attention, you notice. That's the part of the brain that deals with that. It's the part of the brain that deals with goal setting. It's the part of the brain that maybe you've noticed when you have bought something and then suddenly you keep seeing that everywhere. Or you, like the common example that people talk about is like when you buy a car, you buy a red car, a particular model, and then suddenly you start seeing that model or that car everywhere, or you start seeing red cars everywhere. you just notice that. So this is what happens, is that part of the brain, the reticular activating system, helps us to pay attention to those things that we pay attention to, and it brings that evidence to us. So if we have within our mind, I'm stupid, I'm not worthy, I'm this, I'm that, like all these different beliefs, our mind, that part of the brain, is going to bring to our attention to reaffirm that. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's going to make us aware of all those experiences in our daily life that prove those beliefs to be true. So if we want to know what's going on within our unconscious mind, we just need to pay attention to our present life. what's happening around us and how we see things, and any challenges or any things that may be coming up. Life is a mirror. Life is literally a mirror. It's mirroring what's happening within our unconscious. So we have this on a personal level, and we also have this at a collective level. And obviously we can go in, there's many layers to this, and many different perspectives and talking about this, though generally speaking, is like the vast majority of people in society, we have ignored our own inner conflicts. We have this, almost like we have this dominating part, the critical part, judgmental part, and then we have it's almost like self-abusing ourselves in some way, and there can be this, it's almost like this conflict within. And what's happening is that on a collective level, this is why we're seeing so many conflicts around the world, is because on a collective level, so many of us, we still need to look at those internal conflicts. And it's not to say that we are directly at cause for conflicts in the world, though definitely we can help make a difference with peace on this planet if we start looking at what's going on with it within ourselves and within the emotions within ourselves. And this is not to shame or blame or judge or try and perfect ourselves or try and be perfect or think that we're doing it wrong. Or no, we're all human beings. We all have an ego, we have the mind, we have certain human basic needs, we have traumas, we have experiences from childhood. We're literally doing the best that we can. Every single person is doing the best that we can, and it's just bringing a little bit of gentleness to that and just noticing, okay, just a little bit more gentleness. One phrase that I love, and I've mentioned in quite a few sessions already, is, and that's okay. So whenever we notice that there is some negative self-talk, or we've carried out unhelpful habit, or that we have just shamed ourselves in one way, or like a big emotions come up, maybe there's a lot of anger or fear or sadness that's come up about something, just saying to yourself, and that's okay, just in that moment, and that's okay. Because by doing that, we're bringing a very different energy, rather than, oh, I need to change this, I need to rush to a technique. And this is how I use NLP differently to many people out there. Sometimes in the world, in the coaching world, in the NLP world, there can be this tendency to rush to techniques to try and fix things or try and get rid of things, try and neutralize big emotions before truly connecting to it and feeling it and tending to the needs of the inner child. So I'm all for using the techniques. They can be incredibly useful. Though first, I will ask clients to really pay attention to where the emotion is within their body, what the message is from this emotion or this particular habit, like what the message is, and then we will use techniques if we need to. So it's making a little bit more holistic, a little bit more gentle approach, rather than go, right, techniques, and let's do this, let's get rid of this, let's fix this, which can happen, and that's not really my style. So if there are any questions so far, then please do pop it in the chat. Like, you have this chance here to ask questions. This is your chance to have questions answered. If you're going through any challenges at the moment, this is your opportunity to get a little bit of support for free. So this is your opportunity. And so another question that often pops up is that people ask, how many sessions usually does it take? So if someone comes with anxiety, they'll say, oh, how many sessions? Because obviously people want the least amount of sessions, and they want this problem or this thing just to be gone. And I can't give an exact number. Like I can't say, oh, it's going to take 1 session or 3 sessions or 5 sessions. It really depends. Every single person's different. There's different situation, different person, different challenge that they're working through, even if there are similarities. But every single person has gone through different experiences in life. And also, different people have different speeds. For some people, having all of their problems and everything resolved in a really short space of time would actually be incredibly scary. So it's sometimes a gradual process can be a little bit easier for the mind and the body and at all levels to assimilate those changes. Though, that being said, absolutely, changes can be made quickly. When the person is totally open and ready and wanting that change, it can happen. And I've seen that happen. I've seen past clients where we've done one particular technique that they would go home, like before that they would go home, and afterwards they would always experience depression afterwards. And we've used one technique and it took half an hour and then that never happened again. Like I've seen these things happen, though it does depend. It does depend on each person, each situation. So thank you. I'll just read out, yeah, you're explaining everything so well. Don't have any questions at the moment. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here and watching. So yeah, it can depend. Though what I do is that I have a 1 session offer. Like you can literally just pay for 1 session, which is actually the most expensive way to work with me. And if you want to save money, there is a 3 session offer and also a 5 session offer. So with the 3 sessions and the 5 sessions, you save money, and because I've made it cheaper overall for the pack. And I feel that a 3 sessions is a really great way to get started. And 5 sessions is like guaranteed there will be some changes there. Absolutely guaranteed. Though I'm pretty sure with the 3 sessions also, I've seen people have great changes even just with 1 or 2 sessions, but it does depend. So, other questions? Not a question, but I've had this comment quite a lot come up over the years that people have said, oh, so you must have a perfect life because you're an NLP trainer and you know all these things. There's a lot of things I don't know. I'm still learning. We're here to learn on this planet, right? And I'm very blessed and I'm very fortunate, and there's a lot I'm incredibly grateful for in my life, and my life is not perfect. It's far from it. I'm human like everyone else, so I think it's important to remember that, and especially like when we go to teachers, when we go to therapists, when we go to practitioners, when we seek support from somewhere. Sometimes there's this tendency to put people up on pedestals, and every single person is human. So I've got habits, I've got certain things that I've been working through and still working through. Though thanks to NLP, thanks to everything that I've learned so far over this journey of like all these years, and also working with all the clients that I've worked with, that they've been my biggest teachers. I've been able to overcome a lot of things. Like I literally was terrified of public speaking at school. Like I was terrified. Like I would be the person that would just be like hiding behind the piece of paper and shaking, and I absolutely hated it. Like it was the worst thing ever. Like I'd feel all the butterflies. Like it was just, yeah, I can just thinking back to that time, I can like notice like what my younger self was feeling at that time. And now, like, as you can see, like, yeah, YouTube live, it doesn't matter. And even even better in person. I mean, it's great to connect through technology, though when I'm doing workshops and things, I love teaching, and it's one of my favorite things. So NLP's been great for that. And as I mentioned before, so that really helped me with the anxiety and panic attacks. Like, it helped me to completely transform my relationship with anxiety. Because that's the thing, often there's this tendency that people think that anxiety is something to control, and it's not. This is the mistake that a lot of people make. Anxiety is not something to control. It's not something to control. It's something to understand and transform our relationship with it, because when we transform our relationship with it, our experience of it changes. That's the difference. Because when we're trying to control something, there's this element of, like, I just see that almost like trying to shove something in a box and keep it there in this box and not allow it to come out. And this is when panic attacks happen, like, because it just, the pressure just builds up, and it becomes so big that it just explodes. So often what's happened before, like if there are panic attacks that come up, there's been a period of time where emotions have been ignored. There's been a period of time where the needs of the inner child has been ignored. There's been a period of time where the physical body's needs have been ignored. So it's important to really notice that, and to really, just like notice, okay, how can I start seeing anxiety differently? How can I see it differently? How can I shift the perspective so then I experience it differently? It's a messenger. It's a gift. It's an opportunity. It's reminding me about my emotional needs, about the needs of the inner child, about the physical needs. It's reminding me about all these different things. So it's a messenger. And it's coming back to the humanness. Often people with anxiety, they're actually at deep level of the core of it, that they're afraid of being human and having feelings. Okay, could you talk about NLP and depression and also addiction? Yes. So this is something that also comes up. NLP has been used a lot for addiction and depression. My area of speciality, my area of expertise is with anxiety. Though addiction, I have worked with smokers. I have worked with people who have had like small addictions. I don't work with people who have full big addictions that I would then refer them on to someone else if we're talking about hard drugs or anything like that, or like a serious alcoholic addiction. I won't work with that, but there are some people out there that do. At the core of every addiction, pretty much, obviously there can be variations, though most of the time it's looking for connection. There's some basic human need that hasn't been met. And when we're able to fulfill these needs in other ways, then that drive won't be there anymore. Because this is the thing, any behavior, any habit, whether that's addiction that we carry out over and over again, there's some positive intention underneath that. The habit or the addiction, we might think, oh, this is not positive, this is destructive. Though what I mean by positive intention is that there's something driving that. We cannot carry out a behavior without something driving it. Some need. The unconscious mind is looking for a need. So maybe it's looking to feel safe. Maybe it's looking to feel loved. Maybe it's looking to feel significant. Those are the three big ones. There are other needs, but those are the three core ones. So looking to feel loved, looking to feel safe, looking to feel significant. So we can get curious. If we have particular habits, we can get curious and ask ourselves, okay, like, what am I actually looking for? What need am I trying to fulfill? And how can I do that in other ways? How can I do that in constructive ways? How can I fulfill that in constructive ways? I like to see these needs as like buckets. How can I fill up those buckets consciously and constructively? Obviously, addiction is a huge topic and there are many layers and each person is different, and obviously it depends what the addiction is. Though it's, yeah, there's something driving that behavior, and it's finding out what that is and how you can start changing that and fulfilling that in another way. And with depression, I remember years ago I had a workshop and it was cool. It was all about negative self-talk. I did many workshops on negative self-talk. And I did this particular guided visualization, and it was all about coming back to this idea, this image of this inner light, that we have this light within our chest, that spark of life. And every inhale and every exhale, like you can practice this now if you like, whilst you're listening. Every inhale and every exhale, this light grows bigger and bigger and bigger. It just grows bigger and bigger and bigger. The light goes down our arms, goes down our legs, from the head, it just expands, keeps expanding with every breath. So much so that then starts rippling out to us, like out into the world, out from us. And it sounds really simple, but I had one particular person on one of the workshops who had been experiencing a lot of depression, and he practiced this every single day for 7 days. And his response afterwards was, wow, like he's always had like a baseline depression. And he said he never would have thought that such a simple technique would have created such a big difference in how he perceived himself and how he perceived life. So not to say that this will work for every single person, because sometimes there can be other things there, though this is the thing, often the mind thinks that we need something really technical or fancy, or like, oh, a new fancy technique. It can be literally the most basic thing because underneath it all, it's simply just about connection, connecting with ourselves. Most of the time that how we're perceiving ourselves, how we're seeing ourselves, is that we have this idea, like we're looking at the cover of the book rather than the inside of the book. So it's like, oh, how can I get to the core? And this is why connecting with the breath is so important. Just come back to the breath. Like, oh, that's life. That's life right there. Wow, that's life right there. Depression is a big topic again. There's so many different layers, but obviously what I've just explained up until now can be a help, a huge help, and it can be a great start. There can be many other layers to it. Sometimes there is unexpressed anger or unresolved anger. There's something there that hasn't been expressed, or some emotion that something that's been holding on to that, and finding creative outlets to express that through dance, through singing, through writing, through whatever, of like finding also a professional if you need that, whether that's with NLP, hypnotherapy, or a type of therapy that helps people to really move forward rather than remaining stuck in things. So there's many things that can help. And another question, yes. Is that a part of NLP, imagery, visualization, and meditations? Yes, absolutely. Yes, so visualizations, that's a huge part of NLP. And we have many other tools and techniques that we do specific things with images, with how the mind sees them, how we hear that, like sounds within our mind. Like there are all these different tools and techniques that we have, but a general guided visualization absolutely is a huge part of NLP, and we use some Milton model with that. Milton model is hypnosis, like a light hypnotic language that we use as well, that really helps the mind to absorb any positive suggestions from that for what the client wants to work with. So there are many different types of hypnotherapy, but we use Milton model in NLP. And this is a big part of what we do with how, like the images that we see within our minds and also these visualizations. Now, this is another question that's come up over the years that some clients say, oh, I don't visualize very well, or I don't see clear images, like I find it difficult. That's totally okay. It's totally okay. It doesn't need to be clear, it doesn't need to be 100%. Even just the intention there can help. And also, if you mention this to your practitioner when you're working with them, that they can also use other senses to help you to really create that experience and to plant that seed for the unconscious mind. So thank you so much for joining today. If there are any other further questions, you can just still continue placing them in the comment section after this live. One more before we close for today. How can I honor my work at the workplace for myself? I have to work for no money. What's the world saying to me? This, yeah. Well, this is the thing. You say you have to work for no money. And I'm curious about the word have to. Have to. Do you have to? Are there other choices? Sometimes we think that we have no choice, and there can be situations, and obviously I'm very aware that I'm very privileged compared to some people, and generally in the Western world we're very privileged compared to other people in this world, though often we tend to limit ourselves. We say that we have to, and there are more choices. There are choices. So perhaps we choose to do that because perhaps this is apprenticeship. Yes. Okay. So there's this choice. So you're choosing to be there. So just notice the language. Notice the language. So the first way that you can start honoring the work and yourself there is choosing how you talk about it. How you talk about it, and choosing to see this as a great opportunity. And how you talk about it, how you talk about yourself at that situation, you create more choice, more expansion. Like notice how things feel very differently within the body when you say I have to, compared to I choose to, I can, I will. That I embrace the gifts of this situation. Yeah, so notice the language. The language is important. This is a big part. And when we're limiting ourselves with the language, then the experience can feel a bit limiting. So expand the language. How is life inviting you to expand right now? How is life inviting you to expand right now? Think about it. That's a great question for everyone. This is something I often ask myself. How is life inviting me to expand right now? So I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for being here, all of you watching. Thank you for participating. I love it when it's more of an interactive thing and there are questions, because otherwise it's just me talking to a camera. And I love all the questions, so keep them coming. Well, after this live has ended, you can still add questions to YouTube. You can send me messages on social media. All the links are in the description. And I'll be back again next Monday at 7. And I wish you a wonderful week. Much love.